The docking clamps of Virek Orbital Station grabbed the hull of the freighter, with a heavy thunk that echoed through the cargo bay. Captain Donghae Kim pulled off his worn piloting gloves and rubbed his tired eyes. 3 weeks of non-stop hauling medical supplies across the sector had left him exhausted, but at least his pockets were a little heavier now. Not much, but enough to refuel and stock up on food. The station's air smelled different when he stepped through the airlock. Every station had its own smell. Donghae had learned over his 5 years of hauling cargo through space. Virek smelled like oil and something sharp that he could never quite identify. The main corridor was packed with aliens of every type. Tall ones, short ones, ones with too many arms and ones with no arms at all. The noise of 1,000 conversations in 100 languages filled his ears. Donghae made his way through the crowd toward the supply district. His ship, the Baekdu, needed new air filters and the food synthesizer was acting up again. He was mentally calculating how much credit he had left when he heard shouting from one of the lower docking bays. The shouting was harsh and angry. Donghae slowed his steps. It was not his business, he told himself. Every station had arguments and deals gone wrong. A smart pilot kept his head down and minded his own work. But something about the tone of that voice made his stomach twist. It was not the sound of an argument. It was the sound of someone with power using it to hurt someone without any. He turned toward the noise. The lower docking bay was darker than the main corridors. The lights here flickered and buzzed. A group of small creatures huddled together near a containment cell, their bodies pressed close like they were trying to disappear. Their skin had strange markings that glowed very faintly like dying light bulbs. Donghae had never seen this species before. A large alien that looked like a walking tree with too many branches stood over them, shouting. His translator chip picked up the words, "Worthless. Completely worthless. I was told you could work. I was told you could navigate. But look at you. Weak, slow, and your lights barely work." The alien kicked the side of the containment cell, making the creatures inside flinch. Nobody wants to buy you. Nobody needs workers this pathetic. One of the creatures, a female by the looks of her smaller frame, lifted her head slightly. Her eyes were large and dark, filled with something that Donghae recognized. Fear, yes, but also anger that had nowhere to go. She was trying to comfort a smaller creature next to her, wrapping her thin arms around it. "Please." An older male creature spoke up, his voice quiet and broken. "We work hard, we try. Just need food, need rest. We get better." The tree alien laughed, a sound like cracking wood. "Better? You've been nothing but a waste of my station space for 2 weeks. Every buyer who looked at you turned away. Do you know what that does to my reputation?" He pulled out a datapad and jabbed at it with one branch-like finger. "I'm done. I'll jettison the lot of you tomorrow. Better to have empty space than worthless cargo." Donghae felt his hands curl into fists. Jettison. The alien was going to throw these creatures out into space like garbage. He should walk away. He should mind his own business. He had barely enough credits to get to his next job. These creatures were not his problem, but that female was still holding the smaller one, and Donghae thought about his own sister back on Earth. He thought about the human colony on Kepler 442b that had almost starved when their crops failed, and how other human ships had come to help without asking for payment. He thought about what his mother used to say. "We help because we can, Donghae. That's what makes us human." "How much?" Donghae heard himself say. The tree alien turned to look at him, its many eyes blinking in sequence. "What? How much for all of them?" Donghae walked closer, trying to look like he knew what he was doing. Like this was a normal business transaction and not the craziest thing he had ever done. The alien's eyes narrowed. "You want to buy them? These worthless Nalith?" He said the species name like it was an insult. "I have work for them on my ship." Donghae lied smoothly. "Specialized work." "How much?" The tree alien looked at him for a long moment, then at the huddled creatures, then back at Donghae. A slow smile spread across what Donghae assumed was its face. "For a human fool willing to take them off my hands?" 2,000 credits for the lot. 17 units, 2,000 credits. That was nearly everything Donghae had just earned. That was fuel and food and repairs he needed. That was 3 months of careful saving. The female Nalith was watching him now. Her large eyes met his, and Donghae saw the question there. She did not believe anyone would help them. Why would she? The galaxy had taught her that she was worthless. 1,500, Donghae countered, because haggling would make it look more real. They're malnourished and weak. You said so yourself. 1,700, and I throw in their contract documents. Final offer. Donghae pulled out his credit chip. His hand only shook a little. Deal. The transaction took less than 5 minutes. The tree alien transferred the contract documents to Donghae's datapad with obvious relief, took the credits, and walked away without another word. Just like that, Donghae owned 17 living beings. The thought made him feel sick. He approached the containment cell slowly, hands visible and empty. The Nalith pressed together tighter, afraid of this new owner. What fresh horror had bought them now? My name is Donghae Kim, he said quietly, turning on his translator so they could understand. I'm going to open this cell. You can come with me to my ship. I have food and medical supplies. Nobody is going to hurt you. The older male who had spoken before stood up on shaky legs. He was barely 4 feet tall, his body thin like he had not eaten properly in months. What work? He asked. What you want us do? Donghae took a breath. No work. I'm taking you home, back to your planet. The silence that followed was heavy. The Nalith stared at him like he had spoken in a language their translators could not process. The concept was too foreign. Too impossible. Why? The female asked, her voice barely a whisper. Why you help? Donghae thought about all the complicated reasons. About human ethics and morality and the belief that all beings had value. About how wrong it was that the galaxy treated people like cargo. But those words felt too big, too empty. So he said the only thing that mattered. Because you need help, and I can give it. He opened the containment cell. The Nalith did not move at first, still waiting for the trap, for the trick. But slowly, carefully, the female stepped forward. Then another. Then the rest, moving like ghosts who did not quite believe they were allowed to walk freely. Donghae led them through the station toward his ship. Other aliens stopped to stare. Some laughed. A merchant he knew called out, Kim, have you lost your mind? Those things aren't worth the air they breathe. Donghae kept walking. Behind him, 17 pairs of feet followed, quiet and uncertain. 17 beings that the galaxy had thrown away were now his responsibility. He had no idea what he was doing. He just knew it was right. The airlock of the Baekdu opened with a hiss, and Donghae gestured the Nalith inside. Welcome aboard, he said. Let's get you home. The Nalith huddled together in the cargo bay of the Baekdu, pressed against the far wall like frightened animals. Donghae stood near the door trying to figure out what to do next. He had saved them, yes, but now what? He had never taken care of anyone but himself before. The cargo bay suddenly felt very small with 17 pairs of eyes watching his every move. Right, Donghae said, more to himself than to them. Food first. You all look like you haven't eaten in days. He moved toward the galley and the Nalith flinched. The older male who had spoken at the station stepped forward, placing himself between Donghae and the others. Protecting them. What you want us do? The male asked again. His voice was stronger now but still wary. What the work? I told you. No work, just sit tight. I'll bring food. Donghae left before they could ask more questions. In the small galley, he opened his food storage and frowned. He had ration bars, some dried fruit, and a few packets of instant noodles. Not exactly a feast. He grabbed everything he could carry and headed back. The Nalith had not moved. They watched as he set the food down on the floor in front of them. None of them reached for it. It's okay, Donghae said softly. It's for you. Eat. Still, they did not move. The older male looked at the food, then at Donghae, suspicion clear on his face. Why you give food? What you want after? The question hit Donghae harder than he expected. What had these beings been through that made a simple act of feeding them seem like a trap? I don't want anything, he said. You're hungry? I have food. That's all. The female who had caught his attention at the station slowly reached out. Her hand trembled as she picked up a ration bar. She sniffed it carefully, then took a tiny bite. Her eyes widened. She took another bite, bigger this time, and then she was eating like she might never see food again. That broke the spell. The others surged forward, gentle but desperate, reaching for the food. They ate quietly, efficiently, like people who had learned not to waste a single crumb. The smaller ones got fed first, Donghae noticed. Even starving, they took care of each other. While they ate, Donghae pulled out his communication panel and called Mireille Choi. The screen flickered to life, showing a young woman with grease smudged on her cheek and her hair tied back in a messy knot. Donghae, you're back early. Did the run go well? Mirai asked. Define well, Donghae said. He turned the camera toward the cargo bay. Mirai's eyes went wide. What are those? Nihilith. I bought them. You bought people? I bought them from someone who was going to kill them. Now I need your help. Can you access the medical database? They need treatment. Mirai was quiet for a moment, then she nodded. Okay, let me pull up what I can find. Point your camera at one of them. I need to see what we're working with. Donghae approached the group slowly. Can I? He asked the female, gesturing to his camera. She looked confused but nodded. Up close, he could see how thin she was, how the glow from her skin markings was barely visible. Like lights running out of power, Mirai's fingers flew across her keyboard. Malnutrition, dehydration, probably vitamin deficiencies. The medical AI should have something for that. Give me a minute to program a treatment plan. While Mirai worked, the older male approached Donghae. I am Subin, he said. I speak for group. You say you take us home? Yes, to Nalitha Prime, that's your homeworld, right? Sobin's eyes filled with something that looked like pain. Yes, but it's a long way. Many weeks. We signed contracts. Bad contracts. We leave Nalitha Prime for work, but work was lie. They sell us again and again. Each buyer say we worthless. Each buyer treat us bad. He looked down at his hands. We try to be good workers. We try so hard, but never good enough. The female came to stand beside Subin. I am Hana, she said quietly. I was navigator, best navigator of my generation, but I cannot make my light work anymore. Without light, I am nothing. Donghae saw the shame in her face and felt anger burn in his chest. Not at her. At the galaxy that had convinced her she was nothing. That's not true, he said firmly. You're not nothing. You're a person who's been hurt and starved and treated terribly, but you're not nothing. Hana looked at him like he was speaking nonsense, like the idea of having value beyond her usefulness was a foreign concept. Mirai's voice came through the speaker. Okay, I've got a treatment plan ready. Start with hydration packs, then these vitamin supplements. The medical AI will need to scan each of them individually to adjust dosages. Donghae, this is going to take time. They're in really bad shape. How much time? To get them healthy? Weeks, maybe months, Donghae nodded. Then we take our time. Set the course for Nalitha Prime. Slow route, avoiding the busy lanes. That'll take almost a month instead of 2 weeks. I know. After Mirai signed off, Donghae showed the Nihilith to the crew quarters. They stared at the beds like they had never seen anything so wonderful. You sleep here, Donghae said. These rooms are yours now, not cargo bay, a young Nihilith asked. He looked barely more than a child. No, not the cargo bay. Actual rooms with actual beds. That night, Donghae lay in his own bunk and listened to the quiet sounds of the ship. He could hear soft voices from the crew quarters. The Nihilith were talking, their words too low for the translator to catch. But the tone was different from before. Less fear, maybe a tiny bit of hope. The next morning, Donghae found Subin standing in the corridor looking lost. Can I help? Donghae asked. The storage is very messy. Bad organization. Things will shift during travel. Could damage. Subin wrung his hands. I could fix? If allowed? Donghae blinked. You want to organize my storage bay? Nihilith are good with space. We see 3 dimensions well. I could make better system. Only if you want. I not want to overstep. Subin, you're not a prisoner. If you want to organize things, go ahead. By that evening, Donghae's cargo bay looked completely different. Everything was secured perfectly, arranged in a way that made instant sense once you saw it. What used to take him 20 minutes to load now took 5. This is amazing, Donghae said. Subin ducked his head, but Donghae saw the small smile. Pride. The old male was proud of his work, maybe for the first time in months. Over the next few days, something shifted. The Nihilith began to move around the ship more freely. They started to talk more. Hana spent hours staring out the observation window at the stars, her expression distant and sad. The young one whose name was Ji-un started following Donghae around, curious about everything. On the 5th day, as Donghae was running a system check, Hana appeared beside him. Can I ask question? She said, of course, why you do this. You spend all money on us. You use your ship. You give us food and beds. Why you care about beings Galaxy says are worthless? Donghae stopped what he was doing and looked at her directly. Because the Galaxy is wrong. You're not worthless. You never were. Those people who hurt you, who used you, who threw you away, they were wrong. Not you. But we have nothing to give you. I'm not asking for anything." Hana was quiet for a long moment. Then, so quietly he almost missed it, she said, "No one has ever been kind to us before. Not since we left home." "Then the galaxy has a lot to learn," Donghae said, starting with the fact that kindness doesn't need a reason. That night, for the first time since boarding the Baekdu, Donghae heard something he had not expected. Singing. The Nalith were singing in their quarters a soft melody in their own language. It sounded like hope trying to remember how to exist. Donghae smiled in the darkness of his bunk. They were not there yet. Trust took time to build, but it was a start. And sometimes a start was everything. The Baekdu had been traveling for 12 days when the fuel gauge started blinking red. Donghae sighed and plotted a course to the nearest way station. He had hoped to avoid stopping anywhere until they reached Nalitha Prime. But the ship needed fuel and there was no way around it. The way station called Frontier's Edge was smaller than Virek, but it still bustled with activity. Merchants shouted about their wares and ships of all sizes came and went. Donghae docked the Baekdu in a quiet corner and told the Nalith to stay inside while he handled the refueling. "Is not safe for us?" Subin asked. "Just being careful," Donghae said. "I'll be quick." But as he stepped onto the station, he felt eyes on him. Conversation stopped as he passed. A few aliens pointed at him and whispered. The hair on the back of his neck stood up. Something was wrong. He had just finished paying for the fuel when a large figure blocked his path. The alien was twice Donghae's height, with thick armor-like skin and forearms. His translator chip identified the species as Krell, known for being enforcers and soldiers for hire. "You are Donghae Kim," the Krell said. It was not a question, that's right. "Do I know you?" "My name is Vrax. I represent Tellium Mining Corporation. You have something that belongs to them." Donghae's stomach dropped. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The Nalith. 17 of them. You purchased them from Virek Station 2 weeks ago." Vrax pulled out a datapad. "Those Nalith are under contract to Tellium Mining Corporation. By purchasing them, you have stolen corporate property. You will return them immediately, or you will pay a contract termination fee of 50,000 credits. 50,000. Donghae did not have 50,000 credits. He did not have 5,000 credits anymore. "They're not property," Donghae said, keeping his voice steady. "They're people." Vrax's laugh was like rocks grinding together. "The law sees them as contracted labor. You interfered with corporate assets. This is very serious, human. Show me the contracts." Vrax seemed surprised by the request but handed over the datapad. Donghae scrolled through the documents, his anger growing with every line. The contracts were written in language so complicated that even with his translator, he could barely understand them. But he saw enough. The Nalith had signed away their freedom for food and shelter that they never received. They had been promised safe work and fair treatment. None of it had been honored. "I need to make a call," Donghae said. "You have 1 hour to decide. Return the Nalith or pay the fee. If you refuse, Tellium Corporation will take legal action." Vrax crossed all 4 arms. "And trust me, human, you do not want to fight Tellium in court." Donghae walked back to his ship, his mind racing. Inside, the Nalith could tell something was wrong. They gathered around him, fear back in their eyes. "What happened?" Hana asked. "Nothing I can't handle," Donghae lied. He pulled up the communication panel and called Mirai. Her face appeared on the screen. "Donghae? What's wrong? You look terrible. I need you to look at some contracts. Right now." He transferred the files to her. "There's a corporation claiming they own the Nalith. They want them back or they want 50,000 credits." Mirai's expression hardened. "Send me everything. Every document. I'll dig through it." For the next 40 minutes, Donghae paced while Mirai worked. The Nalith sat quietly watching him. They knew what was happening. They had been bought and sold before. They expected it to happen again. Finally, Mirai's voice crackled through the speaker. "Donghae, these contracts are garbage. Complete garbage. Look at Clause 7.3. The contracts promise safe working conditions, adequate food, and medical care. Did the Nalith receive any of that?" "No," Subin said quietly. "No food, no medical care. Only beatings and insults. Then the contracts are void. A contract signed under false pretenses isn't legal. And look here, Clause 12. The Nalith signed these contracts on Nalitha Prime when they were starving. That's signing under duress. Any lawyer worth anything would tear these apart." Hope flickered in Donghae's chest. Are you sure? Completely sure. But here's the thing. Telium Mining Corporation knows this. They're betting you won't fight back. They're betting you'll either give up the Nalith or bankrupt yourself paying the fee. Donghae looked at the 17 beings sitting in his cargo bay. They looked back at him with eyes that expected abandonment. Expected to be handed over to the next cruel owner. Not happening, Donghae said. Mireille, can you send me an official legal analysis? Something I can show publicly? What are you thinking? I'm thinking that corporations like this get away with slavery because nobody calls them out. Time to change that. 20 minutes later, Donghae walked back onto the station. Vrax was waiting in the same spot looking smug. Have you made your decision, human? I have. Donghae pulled out his datapad and connected to the way station's public network. With a few taps, he accessed the station's announcement board, where merchants posted news and information. I'm keeping the Nalith, and I'm sharing these contracts with everyone. He uploaded everything. The contracts. Mireille's legal analysis showing how they were fraudulent. Pictures of the Nalith when he first found them. Starving and terrified. A statement explaining what Telium Mining Corporation had done. Within seconds, datapads all over the station started pinging with notifications. Merchants stopped to read. Other travelers gathered around public screens. The murmur of conversation grew louder. Vrax's armored skin seemed to darken. You are making a mistake. No, Telium made the mistake. They thought they could traffic people and nobody would care. I care, and I'm making sure everyone knows what they did. This will not protect you. Telium has lawyers, has power, and I have the truth. Donghae stood his ground even though his legs wanted to shake. Those contracts are void. The Nalith were enslaved under false promises. If Telium wants to fight this legally, they can try. But now everyone knows what they are, slavers. The word hung in the air. Around them, aliens were reading the posts, sharing them, talking. Some looked disgusted. A few merchants even approached to offer Donghae their support. Vrax stared at him for a long moment. Then, without another word, the Krell turned and left. Donghae watched him go, his heart pounding. He had just made a very powerful enemy. But he had also protected the Nalith. When he returned to the Bekdu, the Nalith were waiting. They had heard everything through the ship's external speakers. You fight for us, Subin said, wonder in his voice. You make enemies for us. Of course I did. Over the next few days, something remarkable happened. The Nalith began to change. With regular food, rest, and the absence of fear, their bodies started to heal. But more than that, their light returned. It started with small flickers. Hana's markings, which had been nearly dark, began to glow softly. Then brighter. Within a week, beautiful patterns danced across her skin in blues and silvers. The others followed. Soon the crew quarters glowed with soft light from 17 sets of bioluminescent markings. It's beautiful, Donghae said. Hana touched her arm, watching the light pulse gently. I thought I had lost this forever. Thought my light was dead. It was just sleeping, waiting for you to be safe again. The Nalith became more animated. They shared stories of their world, of crystal cities and underground caverns that glowed with their people's light. They talked about their culture, their music, their lost families. Donghae shared human things in return. He played them music from Earth. He made them instant noodles, which they found hilarious and delicious. He told them about the concept of home as a place where you were valued, not used. One evening, the young Nalith named Ji-Yoon approached Donghae. The child had not spoken much since boarding the ship. Now, with glowing markings lighting up his small face, he looked up at Donghae. Can I ask something? Jin said. Always. Why humans care? Galaxies say we are worthless. Many species see us and walk away. You are first to help. Why? Donghae knelt down so he was eye level with the child. Because being worthless is not something that can be true. Worth is not something others give you. You have worth just by existing. You always did. The galaxy was wrong, Ji-Yoon, not you. The child processed this, then smiled. It was the first smile Donghae had seen from any of them. I think I like humans. I think we like you too, Donghae said. That night, the Nalith sang again. But this time the song was different. It was not just hope anymore. It was joy, and their light pulsed in rhythm with the music, turning the crew quarters into something magical. Donghae stood in the doorway and watched, and thought that maybe he had not saved them at all. Maybe they had saved each other. The proximity alarm screamed through the Bekdu, jerking Donghae awake from a deep sleep. He scrambled to the cockpit, his heart racing. The display showed 3 ships approaching fast. Military-grade vessels, heavily armed? No, 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 Donghae muttered, his fingers flying over the controls. He opened a communication channel. This is Captain Donghae Kim of the freighter Baekdu. You're entering my flight path. Please identify yourselves. The response was cold and mechanical. Captain Kim, power down your engines. You are harboring stolen property. Surrender immediately and you will not be harmed. Tellium Corporation. They had sent mercenaries. The Nalith crowded into the cockpit, their markings glowing brighter with fear. Subin looked at the display and his face went pale. They come for us, he said quietly. They're not getting you. Donghae pulled up the navigation map. They were 2 days from Nalitha Prime, but these ships were faster than the Baekdu. He could not outrun them in open space. Hold on. He pushed the engines to maximum and changed course, angling toward a nearby asteroid field. It was dangerous, maybe stupid, but it was their only chance. The mercenary ships followed. Warning shots flashed past the Baekdu's hull, close enough that the ship shook. Next shot will disable your engines. The mercenary captain's voice crackled through the speaker. Surrender now. The asteroid field loomed ahead, a chaotic mass of spinning rocks and debris. No pilot in their right mind would fly through it at high speed. The asteroids moved unpredictably, colliding and breaking apart. One wrong move and the Baekdu would be smashed to pieces. Donghae gripped the controls. Everyone strap in. This is going to be rough. Wait! Hana stepped forward, her hand touching the navigation console. Let us help. What? Please. Trust us. Her markings were glowing so bright now that they lit up the entire cockpit. We are navigators. This is what we do. Donghae looked at her, then at the asteroid field rushing toward them. He had seconds to decide. What do you need? Connection to ship systems. Let our light talk to your computers. It sounded crazy. But Donghae had learned that crazy was sometimes the only option. He pulled up the manual navigation interface, exposing the light-based sensors. Here. I don't know if this will work. Hana placed her hands on the console. Her markings pulsed, and suddenly light streamed from her palms into the system. The navigation display flickered, then changed. Numbers and trajectories appeared that Donghae had never seen before. Others, Hana called out. We need everyone. The Nalith moved as one, each placing their hands on different parts of the cockpit. Sabin on the sensors, 3 others on the engine controls. Even young Ji-Yun found a panel and pressed his small glowing hands against it. Their lights synchronized, pulsing together like a single heartbeat. The ship lurched forward into the asteroid field. Donghae had never experienced anything like it. The Baekdu moved like it was alive, dancing between asteroids that should have destroyed them. The Nalith were not just reading the sensors. They were processing information faster than any computer. They saw patterns in the chaos, predicted movements before they happened. Left 3 degrees, Hana said, her voice distant and focused. Donghae adjusted. An asteroid the size of a building spun past, so close he could see the ice crystals on its surface. Down now, Subin shouted. The ship dove. Above them, 2 asteroids collided exactly where they had been a second before. Behind them, the mercenary ships entered the field. But they did not have Nalith navigators. They flew cautiously, slowly, trying to pick a safe path. The Baekdu pulled ahead. Increase speed, Hana said. We can go faster. The ship can't handle faster in here. Donghae protested. Yes, it can. We show you the way. Trust us. Donghae took a breath and pushed the throttle forward. The Baekdu accelerated into the heart of the asteroid field, weaving and spinning through impossible gaps. The Nalith's light grew brighter and brighter, their markings creating patterns that seemed to flow from one to another. They were not 17 individuals anymore. They were one mind, one consciousness moving in perfect harmony. One of the mercenary ships tried to follow their path. It clipped an asteroid and spun out of control, crashing into a larger rock. The explosion lit up the field behind them. The other 2 ships stopped pursuing. They hung back at the edge of the field, unwilling to risk the same fate. 20 minutes later, the Baekdu emerged on the other side of the asteroid field. The moment they were clear, the Nalith collapsed. Their lights dimmed as they pulled their hands away from the consoles, breathing hard. Is everyone okay? Donghae asked, leaving the controls to check on them. Tired, Hana gasped. So tired. But okay. Donghae looked at them with new eyes. That was incredible. I've never seen flying like that. You saved us. We are navigators, Subin said quietly. It is what we were born to do. The ship limped to a safe distance and Donghae set it to drift while he assessed the damage. The engines were strained but functional. Some systems were fried from the Nalith's light connection, but nothing critical. They had survived. That evening, while the Nalith rested, Subin came to find Donghae in the cockpit. "I must tell you truth," the old Nalith said. "Full truth. I'm listening." Subin sat down, his expression heavy with old pain. Long ago, Nalith were famous. Best navigators in galaxy. Every species wanted Nalith pilots for their ships. We could see space in ways others cannot. Our light talks to stars, to gravity, to the fabric of space itself. We were valued, respected. What happened? Our sun changed. Solar flare destroyed our technology, our cities, our way of life. We called for help. We thought other species would remember our friendship, our years of service. Subin's voice broke. But they saw opportunity instead. They saw desperate people who would work for food. They came not to help, but to exploit. They convinced you that you were worthless, Donghae said. Understanding dawning, yes. They said our light was broken, that we were weak, that we had nothing to offer anymore. They said it so many times that we believed it. We forgot what we were, what we could do. Subin looked at his glowing hands. But today, when we flew through asteroids, I remembered. We all remembered. Donghae felt rage burn in his chest. The Nalith had not lost their abilities. They had been systematically broken down, made to believe they were worthless so they could be controlled. "I'm going to make this right," Donghae said. He pulled up his communication panel and searched for a contact he had not used in years. "I know someone who can help." The call connected to a human diplomat named Taman Park. Taman appeared on screen, older than Donghae remembered, with gray at his temples. "Donghae Kim? It's been a while. What can I do for you?" "I need to report a crime. A big one. Corporate slavery, fraudulent contracts, attempted murder." Donghae transferred all the files, everything he had collected, and I have proof. Taman's expression grew serious as he reviewed the documents. This is huge. If even half of this holds up, Telium Corporation will be dissolved. But Donghae, this will take time. Months, maybe years, I understand. But it needs to happen. These corporations need to know they can't treat people like garbage. I'll bring this to the Galactic Council immediately. You've done good work here. Taman paused. Though I have to warn you, Telium will come after you hard before this is resolved. Let them try, Donghae said. After the call ended, Hana appeared in the doorway. You fight for us again. Make more enemies for us. Someone has to. Why you keep doing this? You risk everything for beings you not even know. Donghae thought about his answer. Because someone did it for me once. When I was young, my family's colony was failing. We were starving. Other humans came from across space to help us, even though it cost them. They didn't know us. They just helped because it was right. He looked at Hana. I'm just passing it forward. Hana's markings pulsed softly. Humans are strange, she said. But good strange. The next day, the Bekdu set course for Nalitha Prime again. The mercenary ships did not return. Perhaps they had reported back to Telium that the Nalith were not worth dying for. Or perhaps they had seen what the Nalith could do and decided that pursuing them was suicide. Either way, they were 2 days from home. 2 days from the end of this journey. But Donghae had a feeling it was also the beginning of something much bigger. Nalitha Prime appeared on the view screen like a blue and green jewel, beautiful despite the scars. Donghae could see the dark patches where the solar flare had burned the surface, but he could also see lights. Small settlements, people rebuilding, refusing to give up. The Nalith pressed against the windows, their markings glowing brighter than Donghae had ever seen. Some were crying, others were laughing. After so long thinking they would never see home again, here it was. Prepare for landing, Donghae said softly, not wanting to break the moment. The Bekdu descended through the atmosphere. As they got closer, Donghae saw the settlements more clearly. Simple buildings made from local stone, fields being cultivated, solar collectors being assembled. The Nalith were survivors. They had lost so much, but they were fighting to rebuild. The landing pad was small and rough, clearly new construction. The moment the ship touched down, Nalith began gathering outside. Word must have spread that a ship was arriving. They came running from all directions, their markings creating a sea of light. Dong-hae opened the cargo bay door. The 17 Nalith stood there, hesitating for just a moment. Then Hana stepped forward and the others followed. The sound that went up from the crowd was like nothing Dong-hae had ever heard. Joy and grief mixed together. Families pushed forward, searching faces. Names were called out. And then the reunions began. A female Nalith ran forward and threw her arms around Hana, sobbing. "Sister, my sister! They said you were dead." "Nari!" Hana gasped, holding her tight. "I'm here. I'm home." Subin was surrounded by 3 small Nalith children and another adult who Dong-hae guessed was his partner. They clung to him, their lights pulsing in rhythm. "Papa came back," one of the children kept saying. "Papa came back." Young Ji-yoon was swept up by an older female who held him like she would never let go. His mother, maybe, or grandmother. Dong-hae watched from the doorway of the ship, feeling like an intruder on these private moments. But then Subin broke away from his family and came to him. "Come," Subin said, taking Dong-hae's hand. "You must meet everyone. You must let us thank you properly." The Nalith surrounded him, touching his hands, his arms, his face. Their gratitude poured over him in waves. They brought him to the center of the settlement where a fire burned in a large pit. The entire community gathered. An elderly Nalith stepped forward, leaning on a carved walking stick. Her markings were dim with age, but still beautiful. "I am Elder Bora," she said. "On behalf of all Nalith, I thank you, Dong-hae Kim. You returned our lost ones. You gave them back their light." "I just brought them home," Dong-hae said, uncomfortable with the attention. "No, you did more." Elder Bora looked at the 17 returned Nalith, glowing bright and healthy. "You reminded them they have worth. You fought for them when Galaxy said they were nothing. This is gift beyond measure." That night the Nalith held a celebration. They shared food, simple but prepared with care. They sang songs that made Dong-hae's translator struggle to find words because some concepts did not translate. They told stories of their history, their culture, their hopes for the future. Dong-hae sat by the fire and felt something he had not expected. He felt at home. Over the next few days, Dong-hae used what little credit he had left to order supplies for the settlement. Solar shields to protect against future flares, water purifiers, medical equipment. When he ran out of money, he sent messages to other human traders he knew, telling them about Nalitha Prime. The response surprised him. Within a week, 3 human ships arrived carrying aid, food, building materials, technology. The human captain of the first ship, a woman named Kyung, shook Dong-hae's hand. "Word spreading through human space about what you did," she said. "A lot of us want to help, no charge. Just helping because it's the right thing to do." More ships came. Humans shared their technology freely, asking for nothing in return. They helped rebuild structures. They taught the Nalith how to use new solar collectors that were more resistant to flares. They brought seeds for crops that would grow in Nalitha Prime soil. The Nalith in turn shared their knowledge. They taught humans about their 3-dimensional spatial awareness, about how their light could interface with certain technologies in ways no other species could match. They showed their gratitude through action, working alongside the humans to build something new. One evening, 3 months after arriving at Nalitha Prime, Hana found Dong-hae looking up at the stars. "What you thinking about?" she asked. "How much has changed? 3 months ago, I was just a cargo pilot trying to make enough to eat. Now look at this." He gestured at the settlement, thriving and growing. "I didn't do this alone. This is what happens when people choose to help instead of exploit. You started it. You made first choice. Without you, we would be dead in space." Hana's markings pulsed gently. "I have proposal. Official proposal from Elder Bora and Council." "What kind of proposal?" "Alliance. Between Nalitha Prime and humanity. We offer our navigation skills, our spatial knowledge, our light technology. Humans offer partnership, trade, friendship. True friendship. Equal partnership." Dong-hae looked at her in surprise. "An official alliance? That's huge. You showed us that not all Galaxy is cruel, that some beings still believe in worth of others. We want to build future with those beings. With humans," she smiled. "Besides, we like you. You are good strange." The alliance was formalized a month later with Taemin Park representing humanity in an official capacity. The ceremony was beautiful, with Nalith light songs and human music blending together. Taemin pulled Dong-hae aside afterward. "I have news. The Galactic Council reviewed your evidence. Telium Mining Corporation has been dissolved. Their executives are facing criminal charges, and we found 37 other species who were being exploited the same way. 37? Donghae felt sick. All being freed now, thanks to the precedent your case set. You didn't just save 17 Nalith, Donghae. You saved thousands. Taemin gripped his shoulder. The galaxy is changing. Slowly, but changing. 6 months after that, Donghae stood on the bridge of a new ship. Not a cargo freighter, but an exploration vessel built jointly by humans and Nalith. The design incorporated both technologies, creating something neither species could have built alone. Hana stood beside him as co-navigator, her markings glowing bright as she interfaced with the navigation systems. The crew behind them was mixed, humans and Nalith working side by side. Ready for jump? Donghae asked. Ready, Hana confirmed. Coordinates locked. Unknown system, Sector 7. Then let's see what's out there. As the ship prepared to jump, Donghae looked around at his crew. Subin working at the engineering station with Mirai, who had finally joined them in person. Jiyoon, older now and training to be a navigator like Hana. 3 human crew members and 5 Nalith, all working together like they had always been meant to. Before the jump, Hana spoke quietly. Do you ever regret that day at station when you spent all your money on worthless Nalith? Donghae smiled. The only worthless thing I've ever encountered is the idea that anyone is worthless. Everything else has value if you're willing to see it. Humans are very wise sometimes. Sometimes we just get lucky and do the right thing. The ship hummed with power, both human engines and Nalith light systems working in harmony. On the hull, visible through the view screen, the ship's name was painted in both human letters and Nalith light script, the second chance. Engaging jump drive, Hana said. The stars stretched and bent, and the ship leaped forward into the unknown. Behind them, Nalitha Prime glowed with the lights of a civilization rebuilding. Ahead of them, endless possibilities waited in the darkness of space. Donghae had learned something important over these months. Worth was not something the galaxy gave or took away. Worth was inherent, built into every living being. And when you recognized that worth in others, when you fought for it and protected it, you did not just change individual lives. You changed everything. The crew worked at their stations, comfortable with each other, trusting each other. Humans and Nalith together, showing the galaxy a different way, a better way. And in the end, that was worth more than all the credits and all the trading stations in all of space. The second chance flew on, carrying its crew toward new horizons, proof that sometimes the most worthless-looking choices lead to the most valuable futures.